Welcome back, Eric.
Yes, Jen, welcome back.
We're going to start having one of our mental health conversations again. And this week we are going to talk about burnout and mindset.
I can't wait. This is a great topic.
It really is a
It,
good topic.
it's a hot topic that people talk about in all different fields. I know you and I at Safe Harbor are in the behavioral health space, and I hear that topic a lot. It's on people's minds. So
hmm
hopefully what we have to share today is going to be helpful to people.
Yeah, some good nuggets. I know we have them. So,
Yeah.
before we get really delved into this topic, I want to just step back and acknowledge that as you were talking about burnout, there's a need to look at multiple different dimensions of this. We're going to be talking about mindset and how mindset plays a huge part in the feeling of burnout, how to manage burnout. Um, but there's also just a very concrete element here, too, of workload, time management, work life balance, and things like that. So, the first step is always to kind of look at that and say, okay, where are some tweaks that need to happen on a very concrete level? Looking at my schedule, what do those things look like? But we don't want to stop there and not think about the mindset that goes along with burnout as well. So I think it's just important to remember that, because I know that in my own life, there's been times when I've thought to myself, okay, I'm feeling burned out. The key is to cut out some work, figure out where I can cut back. And I learned through that wherever I am, I'm right there. And if my mindset doesn't change, it doesn't matter if I cut back or I cut things out of my schedule or I reduce all of the things that I'm doing, because my mindset is still the same and I'm going to still feel the same way. So
It's a great distinction.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I hear a perspective that the work is the enemy.
hmm
The work's the enemy, so we need to reduce the work. And I think what we're talking about here is that that's a very short-sighted
hmm
approach.
Yeah.
Sometimes the problem, it's inside of us. It's not the work.
hmm
Sometimes it could be both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of times when we think about burnout, it's not about the workload. It's more about our interaction with the work and our
Right.
internal process.
Right. I mean, even clinically with different disorders, there's a distinction between what the external exposure was, and then it's our internal processing
hmm
of that external exposure that can lead to anxiety disorders, depression, yeah, all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a similar dynamic where we all have external pressures and forces,
Mhm.
external, but internally, we want to do what we can to have a narrative that's productive, it's healthy, it's a self care narrative that's good for us
Yeah.
around that, because we can't always change circumstances around us. And sometimes those circumstances don't even need to be changed.
Right. Right. Sometimes those things seem as if they're the easiest things to change. So let's just change that really quick and see if it makes a difference. But it's really the internal.
Right.
Yeah. I can feel it already, Eric. This is going to be one of those that I'm going to listen to my own words later and be like, Jen, you've been waking up in the morning and thinking, didn't have to go to that meeting, right? Which is the internal dialogue
Oh, yes, it is.
that is immediately hitting me. And I have to change that dialogue in order for me to not feel exhausted by the work that I'm doing.
Right. I remember when I was seeing a full caseload back in the early years of Safe Harbor, I'd look at 8 people on my day back to back for that day. And certain ones felt energizing to me and certain ones felt draining. And so the ones that typically that came in and just didn't have much to say, didn't know who they were,
Mhm.
and wanted me to carry the whole conversation, being somebody who tends to one of my lifelong um, struggles, growth areas has been that I can take responsibility for other people. So that person who's shut down doesn't have much to say. I would take it on me. I need to fill an hour or 50 minutes. I
Mhm.
need to fill that time. And that was exhausting to me.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped doing that and saying, well, it's their 50 minutes, I'm here to help them do that. And I started putting more responsibility on them. I changed the narrative inside. I wasn't quite as drained. They still
Mhm.
weren't my favorite clients, but I wasn't as drained.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's delve in. Okay. We
Okay.
know that we're going to be talking about the mindsets that contribute to burnout and also help us get out of a place where we're feeling burned out. So, maybe we should start with just a definition here of like what are the things that we're experiencing when we're talking about burnout that are the things that we don't want to experience. You just mentioned one is like the exhaustion, like you're emotionally exhausted.
Right. Tired, physically tired.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, it's the when I start noticing the internal dialogues of, oh, I can't wait till this meeting is over. Or I
Uh
can't wait
huh.
until this day is over. And oh, I can't wait till I get to Wednesday, right? Instead of being present in
Exactly.
Monday. Yeah.
Right. It's so interesting when we're in that state of mental and physical tiredness.
Mm.
Somebody, I could have been back in those days between sessions, and I spoke to a good friend for 5 minutes. All of a sudden, I'm wide awake
Right.
because
It's energizing.
it wasn't physical. It was, a whole different mindset that I had.
Hmm.
And so I think you would agree, and our listeners would agree. We don't want to be blown and tossed and like, oh, I'm exhausted when external forces are exhausting. I'm energized when external forces are energizing. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty out of control feeling.
Right. Right. Waves hitting you at any given
Right.
time. Yeah. Yeah. I think another piece of burnout is just a decreased feeling of accomplishment where you just
Mm,
feel like I'm not, I mean, we're talking a little bit from a counseling perspective because that's our field. But this is in any field, is when you already are setting yourself up for not feeling accomplished. Like, I'm not going to be able to make a huge difference there. So I'll just do the bare minimum on that because I know it's not going to make a difference.
right. We've lost the meaning of there's not meaning in what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Well, I feel like this is the first big light on the board, right? We've
Okay.
lost meaning. Let's talk a little bit about that, Eric, because that has a huge impact on how we experience, if we experience burnout or not.
It really is. Well, one of the things I noticed when I looked at that caseload that and some were energizing and some weren't, that one thing that helped me that I just like did very early on was the ones that were energizing. I focused on those in my mindset. I'm like, all right, so and so's coming in. This potentially could be draining, but after them, so and so's coming in. And this case is very exciting. I'm making a difference. They're making great strides. I'm seeing change, or they're open. I think I'm about to see change, and I focused on that. Kind of like one of the habits that I have is when I go out to dinner and there's the certain things on the plate that are my favorite things. And then there's the vegetables. I
Mm,
try to
mm-hmm,
I try to eat all or at least a bunch of the vegetables first
mm.
because I'm like, after the sea bass or the steak or God forbid the lobster mac and cheese or like the vegetables are going to lose their
Mm-hmm.
appeal. It's a mindset that I'm going to do the harder thing first, and
Yeah.
then the reward is those other things. And that was kind of the mindset that I would have, that okay, certain cases they're on my schedule today, but these other ones, they're the reward.
In my mind, that speaks a little bit to discipline also.
Right.
right? Is disciplining ourselves to the point of knowing, like, these are the things that are more challenging for me. First, it's self awareness of knowing that. And then I'm going to lean into those first,
Right.
even though there's literally nothing in me that wants to do that. Right?
I'll give you a good example of an external factor because we're
Yeah.
talking about that a minute ago.
Yeah.
So early on, I had a couple of children on my caseload. And so those were not cases that energized me. I felt like I'm not sure what I'm doing, whatever. And I thought about getting a lot of supervision with those. And I just had to conclude that that was an external force that was not going to energize me. I mean, could I have gotten training and been effective at it? Probably to some degree. But I just was like, okay, I don't have to do every type of case.
Yeah.
And there's other people that are energized by that. These kids deserve somebody that is energized by working with kids.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a good point because I think that oftentimes we think it's to prevent burnout. It's about cutting things out. I'm gonna cut out this. I'm gonna cut out that because I don't like that. But what it is really adding in more of what you love
Mm,
because
right.
we can sustain a pretty heavy workload, and this is across the board, all of us as humans, we can sustain a heavy workload if it's things that bring us, that feel life giving and that bring us joy.
So true. So true. The other night, I'd had a couple of meetings, some things, and there was something that came up that I was very excited about that could be a great thing for Safe Harbor. I I had to restrain myself from spending the evening researching,
Uh-huh.
chat GPTing that topic, coming up with strategies.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, I'm going to do other things. I'm going to spend time with people I care about and I'm going to do other things. I can do this tomorrow. But it's that dynamic that when you're energized by something, then your capacity grows.
Yeah. And I love this too because there's so many times, I mean, again, as a clinician, that I sit in a room and I think to myself, like, it's such an honor to be here with this person. And I walk out and I think, okay, I'm pretty surprised that I get to be in a place where they pay me to do this
Right.
because that felt amazing to just be able to witness someone's progress, witness
Hmm.
them having that moment when they like the lights went on and they went, oh, that's my pattern. And it like that is so much fun. And also, there are the other moments when I sit in session and think, I would love to work at McDonald's and flip burgers. Right? I mean, that's the reality is
Uh-huh.
that, and I'm sure in every field, it's not just counseling. In every field, there's days and moments like that. But being able to increase and choose the things that you love more of, adding more of those is going to be able to sustain you.
Right. And I want to understand in a minute, what are some of the things in your role as clinical director
Mm.
that energize you, that you absolutely love, that you get to do? Um, First, I just wanted to comment on that what you said. I think we love those moments where we see the impact that we're making. And I think it's so critical, like you said, to relive those in
Mhm.
our mind. I also think sometimes it's a more baseline level than that of just saying, you know what? It is such an honor. People invite me into spaces that are they're sacred spaces in their life that hardly anybody or maybe nobody has access to. But I'm invited into this space. And just that alone, it that feels rewarding.
Yeah, it's purpose.
Yes,
It's
that's
purpose
purpose. Yes,
and
thank
meaning.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even before I'm looking at impact
Mhm.
that's made, that is purpose.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me, I heard this story once about this gentleman who drove the shuttle bus at the airport.
Uh huh.
but he decided like he's like, this is the job. I am leaning into it wholeheartedly. And so people would get on the shuttle bus and he would say, "Good morning. How are you? Where are you going today?" And he would engage them in conversation. I'm sure some appreciated that and some maybe not. But he would have music playing, and he ended up like winning this award for being the like happiest shuttle bus driver at
Wow.
the airport, because wasn't it wasn't mundane to him, because he had purpose and meaning in what he was doing.
He saw an opportunity to add value to people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we do that, it really does give us the ability to manage things that would lead to burnout.
Yes. Well,
It's
sorry.
like the antidote.
So let me circle back for
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
What are the things as clinical director of Safe Harbor that energize you?
Yeah.
That you're like, wow, I get to do this.
Eric, I'm a little hesitant to say it because I know that Safe Harbor folks are going to watch this, and there's going to be a corporate eye roll that's about to happen. Are you ready? Because if you asked anybody at Safe Harbor, they'd say, "Oh, JMD, she loves to create new things."
uh,
Right. And I do. I really like to innovate. That's one of our core values. And I
mhm,
love to create new things. You say, "Hey, Jen, we should have this," or whatever it may be, an internship program. Oh,
right.
that sounds fun. Let's do it. I love creating new things.
Right. That's why we're a great team. I love coming up with ideas, but you create those into something. You develop those into
Hmm.
something. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember years ago, this idea came up of a program called Client Thrive that was a counselor development program because at Safe Harbor, we'll say it, we don't just care about helping clients, but we care about developing clinicians. So I had this program called Client Thrive that was really a counselor development program and specifically aimed at you and I agreed that it's the relationship that's built with the client that is a big determinant in their clinical success.
Yeah.
And so I sat down with like 8 of our highest performing counselors, asked them whatever questions I could think of, took notes, turned it to you. And the next thing I knew, there were 3 modules. It's an internal badging system. There are
Yeah.
videos, tests,
Yeah.
content, and this whole program. And then fast forward like 8 years from then, the other day, I said to you, I'm like, Jen, the clinical results of how much we're helping people and how counselors, not just their symptom load for the clients, but the counselors, how much their engagement scores with their clients have one of those scores of engagement had doubled. The
Hmm.
average had doubled. And I'm like, Jen, how have you done that? You're the clinical director. Your team, all of our counselors are killing it.
Hmm.
How have you done that? And you said, well, I think Client Thrive's been a huge part of that, which is a program that your innovation created the program.
Yeah.
So I would second that. I would say like that is, I
For
see
all the
that
eye
energy.
rolling listeners
Yeah.
out there, roll it back because it was fun. You can roll your eyes. It's fine.
Yeah, roll it back.
It's
You heard
fine.
what she said. You heard her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So innovating. What's another? You mentioned the internship program.
Mm.
That's another example of one day I just threw that at. Hey, Care First allows us to have interns seeing their members, and then you developed this whole internship program, and I know it was a proud moment for you when we had a CEU event on
Amazing.
spiritual. I keep wanting to say spiritual trauma.
Yeah.
It was on spiritual trauma, and the very first intern that
Hmm.
we had, Naquana Zimmerman,
Yeah.
was on our panel at the end,
Yeah.
and she's gone from intern to fellow to licensed graduate counselor And is that where she is?
She's fully
She's
licensed now.
full licensed clinical professional.
Yeah.
She's gone through all of the
All
stages
of
and
them.
she's on our panel dropping knowledge,
Yeah.
and you created that program. Without you creating that program, there's no Naquana Zimmerman doing that, or the countless others that have come through that pipeline.
Yeah. And you know what's underlying that is being able to walk with people through the journey. We've been able to walk with her through school, through getting her hours, through now being a fully licensed counselor, to now being a presenter. Now she's referring other people to it. It's amazing to be able to have longevity with people. And that's what I really love, is being able to have, be with people as they journey along their path. And then we get, for however long it is, to be part of that journey.
Right. And you do that by developing people, because guess what? If we're not developing interns, they don't become fellows.
Yeah, right.
They jump ship. We don't develop fellows. They don't come on as LGPCs or LMSWs. They go somewhere else because people want to be developed.
Yeah.
All right. So burnout, right. Remind me where have we been? Where are we going?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that really speaks to one of the pieces of burnout, of the meaning and purpose.
Yes.
Right. So that's one of the antidotes to burnout, is being able to add in more things that bring meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm. You saying that, it reminds me how our capacity changes when we do what you're saying.
Yeah.
When we add meaning and purpose and have that mindset. Our executive team years ago listened to a presentation by one of our favorite leadership gurus, Craig Groeschel, and he told a story about his work with an executive coach who trained business executives, high-level leaders. And one of the exercises they did was they got into a pool, and he said, all right, Craig, I want you to hold your breath as long as you can.
Yeah.
Go under the water.
Oh, wow.
Hold your breath. 30 seconds later, Craig bursts up out of breath, gasping for air. And the coach taught him some techniques. And some period of time later, he went under, and he was going to try to hold his breath for like 2.5 minutes. And he's under there, and the coach is telling him, you're at 1 minute, you're at 2 minutes. Well, really, the coach was lying to him. He was under there, if I got the story right, under the water, something like 4 minutes. But he thought he was under for 2.5 minutes.
Right.
And then his conclusion, his whole point is you're capable of more than you think you are. And also capacity is not a static thing, because that first time, it wasn't just willpower. You can't will your way through. Okay, I'm just going to have a greater capacity. But he did the things that it took to increase his capacity. So I think, just to give an analogy and a context, what we're talking about in this conversation are tools that can increase our capacity.
Mm-hmm. Tools that can increase our capacity, and also awareness of things that can decrease our capacity.
Yes.
Let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about some of the things that can decrease our capacity. Okay. Because again, it's not just a number, a workload, right? It's not if I work 80 hours a week, then that's really what, it's just not sustainable. Well, that may be true, but also the mindset behind that. What are some things that really impact our capacity?
I think feeling like we have to be great at everything.
Oh, why do you have to say that, Eric? It's so true.
Like, it was the weight of the world off my shoulders when I was like, I don't have to be a great child therapist.
Yeah, right.
I can be great at, another part of therapy that energized me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else?
I just, along with that, perfectionism is an absolute burnout. It's like a magnet for burnout, right? When you have to be perfect, and when you can't step back and say, okay, you know what? All right, I did that. I messed up. I messed that up. I'm not
Right.
perfect at that. Um, but when we set our standards to perfection, we're going to feel
Right.
burned out.
Right. Yeah. I think that pointing to examples where maybe we did a good job, but not a spectacular job, and it still made a difference.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know that there might be haters when I say this, but but I don't think Cal Ripken was a spectacular player. He was a solid player that did the same. That what made him great was consistency and reliability. But he really had few spectacular seasons. But he had 20 or something, and where he never missed a game, where he was reliable and did a very good job. And that landed him in the Hall of Fame
Mm-hmm.
because guess what? If you do a really good job over and over and
Yeah.
over consistently, that is spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a cumulative effect. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that,
Yeah.
that we, think we need to do the grand, huge miracle in whatever the field is that our
Mm-hmm.
listeners are in. Could be mental health, could be something, could be IT, whatever it is.
Yeah. I like what you're really talking about here too is setting an expectation for yourself.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was teaching, I always used to tell students, like, if your expectation is you're going to walk into a counseling room and you're going to have aha moments nonstop, you probably need to be in a different field because that's not what happens,
Right.
right? It's the consistently showing up for difficult conversations and being consistent as you're showing up. Yeah, there are aha moments and they are lovely. They're
Right.
amazing. But it's the consistency of doing the hard work.
It is. I remember I was in graduate school getting into this field, and we came to the part in one of the classes where we were talking about resistance. And I remember I was confused inside. I thought, resistance? Uh, Why would any client come to therapy and be resistant? I'm like,
Okay.
that makes no
Yeah.
sense to me. I'm like, really? This is the thing?
Uh-huh.
And and so I had this unrealistic expectation that everybody who comes in for therapy is just full of energy, ready to work, and they're just ready for all these pearls that you have to give them, and their life's just changed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's wonderful. And I had to adjust my expectation and find meaning in doing a really, really solid, real consistent, great job.
Yeah.
And sometimes without this grandiose result of how I wanted it to be. But I found meaning in that. I remember I had a client early on and I had a supervisor. I was getting my hours for clinical licensure. And the most mentally ill client I had, most were people that were functional. But this woman was like, I saw her twice a week and she was constantly suicidal, had hospitalizations. And I said to my supervisor, all right, what am I missing? Because I had this idea in my head that if I was doing a good job as a therapist,
Mm.
she was going to be this thriving member of society who was working full time, climbing the company ladder,
Right.
throwing Christmas parties at her house,
Mhm.
and all these great things, you know, working with underprivileged children, changing their lives. And he stopped and he goes, Eric, your goal is to keep her, two goals, keep her alive and out of the hospital. If you do those two things, then it's a huge success. And I just remember being shocked, but I had to adjust the mindset,
Yeah.
the
Expectation.
expectation I had to adjust.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more that I think is really important when we're talking about burnout. And this comes up in counseling a lot is sort of the, um, I'm afraid to say it, countertransference.
Mm,
Right. So in counseling, what that means for all the listeners who aren't in counseling is like, what's going on in me? Right? What are my unresolved
right.
stressors or situations or things that I have that are me that are maybe being triggered? by the situation. And this could be, it doesn't have to just be in counseling, right? People in all different fields could be experiencing being triggered in their environment. And so their work is really being impacted by their own triggers and things, that unresolved stressors or things they've got
Right.
in their life. That's a hard one.
That is. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Give
Yeah.
us a little scenario. You don't have to give every detail.
Well, you know what? Here, I'll give you sort of a general one is that when I started out, I was in pediatrics. I wanted to work with all kids. And I was
Wow.
like, I love working with kids. Then I had one of my own.
Mm.
And I said, I think I'm done working with kids. Like, I don't really want to work with kids anymore. And that was part of it. I was working in pediatric hospice as well. And so I was really able to connect with parents who are walking through this horrible journey that nobody wants to have to experience, of losing a child. And I was really good at being with them, just right up until the point where I had my own. And then it took years. It took me a couple years to be able to get back to the point where I was okay with working with that population again. So that was my own development. So I know that can be the case for people as we are walking through life. There are different triggers that we have.
What did you notice was happening inside of you?
Oh,
And
yeah.
once you had a child of your own and you're working in pediatric hospice, what specifically did you notice internally?
Yeah, I was over identifying.
Uh,
And that's one of the symptoms of burnout, right? Is that we start
Right.
over identifying
mhm.
with in counseling with our clients. And I couldn't step back. Because I would think that could be my kid. That could be, then
Right.
I started to become more anxious about my own children and what was going on. I remember one night laying in bed thinking of how I could, if there was a fire in my house, how I could rip the sheets in half to create a rope to lower the twins out of the house.
Oh my
And at that
goodness.
moment, I thought, what am I doing, Jen? Jen, what are you doing right now? You've just spent 45 minutes calculating how many sheets you would need to tie and rip in order to get all 3 children out of the house at the same time if it was burning down. You're sitting in bed and nothing's burning down. And that was huge for me to realize what was going on and how I needed to make some shifts.
Right. So you had the self-awareness and then you assessed that it would be a better thing to get out of pediatrics
Yeah.
than
For a time being. Yeah.
for time than to try to manage the over-identifying.
Yeah.
You're like, I have this option. This would be the best self-care.
Yeah. And then I was able to come back to it. So,
Right.
I think that, over identification is another one of those flags that wave.
Right.
So, we've talked a lot about the gap in purpose and meaning. And that's also one of those flags. When we start, I think as counselors, many of us got into the field because we want to help people,
Exactly.
right? But when we start feeling like maybe we are over identifying and like, oh, this is my responsibility to make a change for this client, like you were talking about,
hmm
when really it's not.
Right. Well, I think we could go to two extremes on that, where it's all about our purpose. So we need clients to get better.
Yeah. I need you to get better.
I need this relationship to be fixed so that I feel like my work has purpose. I
Mhm.
need this depression to go away so that I feel like I'm a good counselor and that I'm helping people. Then I think the other extreme is that we realize that doesn't work and that's not healthy. And then we swing the other way and realize, like, adopt a mindset of, yeah, well, most people don't want what I have to offer. And this isn't what I thought it would be. And most people don't change. And the person just starts going through the motions of
Well,
whatever
that's
they're.
cynicism.
Yeah, that is. Good call. Good call.
Another element of burnout, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right? It's those internal dialogues.
Right. So the trick is to have meaning and purpose without projecting that onto our clients or being cynical.
Yeah. It's like right in the middle.
Yes.
keeping the meaning and purpose, and doing the things that create life for you and you make you feel alive,
Hmm.
and being able to balance that.
Yeah, I kind of look at that as letting, doing the things at a baseline fundamental level that are the fundamentals, and then letting the results come to me instead
Mm,
of chasing results. Kind of like the batter, to use like a baseball analogy. A batter can go up there just swinging at everything, or they can wait for their pitch, let it come to
mm,
them,
yeah.
and it's going to go better if they're not chasing everything, trying too hard.
Reserving your energy for when it really matters.
Yes.
That's good. Okay, let's summarize for folks, right? Because in our usual fashion, we could sit here for hours and
Yes, we
talk.
could.
But let's just summarize. Is a couple things that really have stood out to me is we didn't use the term, but like really noticing our triggers,
Hmm.
right? Increasing things that help us find meaning and purpose,
Right.
but also balancing that, because remembering it's not all about us, and
Hmm.
we don't want to force change because we need it,
Hmm.
particularly in counseling, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, Jen, you have guided us through a map of many items that can really help us with burnout and energize us, help us to find meaning and purpose in the work. And I love that emphasis that you've shared and we've discussed today. I think it's great to find hobbies that energize us
yeah.
and take trips or have relationships in our personal life that are connected and energize us.
Mhm.
Have dogs. I mean, there's a million things.
Yeah.
My dog energizes me. All those things are great. But this conversation has really focused on finding meaning and purpose in the work itself, and that the work is not the enemy, and identifying things that are energy drainers for us, whether it be we're in the wrong seat, or the mindset isn't the right mindset. You've helped us really take a broad look at all of those things, and hopefully, this is very helpful to our listeners. So, thank you everybody for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next month on the next episode.